All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to a new episode of CXO Insights. Today we're speaking with Tony White, who leads the US chemical, glass, and energy vertical at Siemens, a role that gives him a front row view into how some of the most energy intensive and operationally complex industry in America are changing. His work sits at the intersection of digital transformation, work evolution, and the pressure to modernize in both speed and stability. Tony, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Lucian. I appreciate the opportunity.
Sure. Now, I want to dive straight into the forces reshaping manufacturing from scalability to data structure to the realities of workforce transformation and what separates true transformation into simple digitalization or digitization, sorry.
Mhm.
Maybe start with a definition of what you see as the industrial transformation and how many companies talk about digitalization, but true transformation goes beyond technology adoption. How do you differentiate between digitization and
Mhm.
transformation in manufacturing?
Very good. Yeah, at Siemens, we're looking at this from, a lot of companies are talking about digitalization, AI, and all these other areas, but we really see this as three key areas. One is in scalability. How can I scale my process? The second is data-driven decisions, certainly coupled with AI and workforce readiness, and how that really applies to productivity within manufacturing.
Got it. Thanks for those things. And now let's double click on the first thing you mentioned, scalability. How do you see scalability evolving from manufacturing environments as companies move from a pilot or from isolated digital projects into enterprise-wide digital transformation?
So I think in the scalability aspect of things, you have many companies that are at different levels. Some are, legacy companies, others are new to the market. And I think the new to the market companies are very interesting because they usually start off with a technology that might be benchtop, then they go to pilot, and then they want to go into full-on production. And when you start looking at scale, how do you do that? Well, in many cases, we start using digital twins. And these digital twins usually help us understand the technology, understand the potential yield. But what's been really interesting in recent times is that we're using the digital twin to model not only the technology, but the actual output, and then help de-risk these manufacturing technologies to their investors. So if you're talking to somebody that's in the hydrogen space or carbon capture, these are all new emerging technologies. And by utilizing a digital twin, you can help validate your solution and reduce the risk for your investors.
Great
And
insight. I like that focus on outcomes, and maybe we'll double click a little bit on the second aspect you mentioned, data-driven decision, whether it's leveraging AI or digital twin. In your view, what are the biggest challenges organizations have when turning raw operational data into actionable insights?
And so I think a lot of that starts at many different levels. There's the foundational piece. So in every structure, you have to have a strong foundation. So you have to be able to collect the data from the production field and bring it up into an area where you can make evaluations and make decisions. And for a long time, we've been doing things like energy management. Everyone talks about energy management, but in many cases, we do energy monitoring because there's very little done with the energy data after we collect it. But now when you start to embed AI and the ability to make decisions, like as a data scientist, now you can make real world decisions on the plant floor. And that allows you to drive better efficiency, reduce your costs, and have higher output.
So, how can advanced analytics and AI help bridge that gap between data collection that we've been collected for several decades and strategic decision making?
Well, when we utilize the AI technology, it helps us to do real-time analytics on the floor. So, for example, many scenarios are dashboard fatigue, alarm fatigue. It allows us to prioritize alarms, bring the most important alarms to the top. It allows us to provide uh, insight to defects and reduce failure mode. So that helps take and reduce some of the cognitive load on the operators. And in some cases, I've heard they want to reduce the number of swivel chairs. So operators looking at many different areas and having a single pane of glass with intuitive information so they can help solve problems quickly.
Got it. Now, you've referenced outcomes, you reference some of the companies that save out energy. Any particular numbers you can attach from the three industries that we're talking about, the glass or the chemicals or energy?
Yeah, I think when you look at the workforce gap and
Mhm.
productivity, if you take a look at energy, chemical, and compare it to adjacent markets like automotive, for example, over the
Mhm.
past 2 decades, their productivity has been going down. And that's unfortunate because as you have reduction in productivity, you have a reduction in workforce, and now we're looking at the retirement and turnover. Some numbers like, for example, where we used to see people on the job for 7 years, we're now looking at 3 years on the job. And this reduction in time on task is resulting in potential fatalities and worse yet, preventable fatalities. So it's really important to try and shore up that skill gap, and we're using technologies like connected worker or AI to help bring that veteran information or veteran skills into the new workers that are coming online.
Thank you, Tony. Now, I know I spent 20 years in industrial software,
Mhm.
uh, always automating plants and operations management. And right before I started the IoT world, we were promoting situational awareness, right? So still focusing on dashboard and how can you prevent things like, okay, what is an action that needs to happen in the next few minutes, next 30 minutes, next day, and so on. With the help of AI, you've referenced you can shorten that time of training operators, right? If they're revolving door within 3 years, they're saying it
Mhm.
takes about a year and a half to get them trained to the level, yet most of them quit after 6 months. So what do you view in terms of what do you envision is the role of the workforce changing in manufacturing? In any comments there? You
Well,
reference
I
connected
mean,
worker. So.
one thing I like to think about is, I mean, if we take a moment and just pause and think, where were we April
Mhm.
2020?
Mhm.
This was an unbelievable shift in what was going on in manufacturing. Half the world's population was in lockdown. We all had to become more innovative and create
Mhm.
new ways to solve problems. We had, critical infrastructure that still had to run. These machines still went down. No planes, no trains. How do we get them running? Subject matters, experts all around the world could not travel to the locations. So we had to create technology like, Google Glass and collaborative work, augmented reality. And it really impressed upon, I think, many of our customers the need to be prepared and the need to have the ability to have remote access. And now in today's new world, we have workers that are scattered throughout the country, telecommunicating in. It allows you to have access to a much broader population of the workforce because now you can find the best resources wherever they may be, and you can really react much quicker into let's say, an issue.
I like that. Finding the worker wherever they may be with the use of technology, with one click, you can get the best resources versus the closest resource. Now,
Mhm.
I want to close with one question around the strategy, the company recommendation that you have for companies that to adapt to upskill employees and foster a culture that embraces digital tools rather than
Mhm.
fears them.
Mhm. Yeah, so I think a lot of companies, they have this understanding that they need to move forward. They need to adopt this technology, but they're paralyzed by all the different scenarios. They're really unsure where to start. The convergence of IT and OT and how do we meld these two worlds together? So we really have a very, say, forward methodology for doing this. And I think the first one is we have to affirm value. So look at their company, look at their North Star, look at where they want to be and where they're currently at. The second thing is come up with a systems architecture that helps realize the value that they're looking for. And the third and final is create a strategic implementation plan that is, designed in short sprints so you can recognize some of these digital transformations in short time frames, like 90 days. I worked with one company. They had a very clear North Star, but they didn't have the governance in place. And what happened was at the end of our evaluation, we saw that they had 80 different digitalization projects running concurrently throughout the organization, everything handled as a unique project. And unfortunately, that creates a lot of inefficiency, a lot of overlap in technology, and at the end of the day, a lot of lost money.
Tony, thank you so much for the insights. And if you're in the audience, have a question for Tony, feel free to leverage the hashtag you see on the screen, or better yet, see it at one of the upcoming events like the Energy Live, uh, or Again, just drop a comment and we'll make sure that Tony or somebody in his team will get the question answered. Thank you.